Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Podcasts, Conversations on Philippine History, Politics, and Society. We are now in our finale episode. So, yes, pansamantala magpapaalam ang podcast at ang ating current season na bagay-bagay objects of Philippine life. Pero magbabalik kami next year for a continuation of this series. We are your hosts. I am Lee Candelaria.
I am Vekal Porha.
And I'm Joselito Ebro.
Today we're talking about the most Filipino thing that never actually started here in the Philippines, no? Rice. Kasi archaeological evidence shows rice only arrived in the Philippines around 1500 BCE, brought by Austronesian migrants. Those charred rice husks found in Cagayan Valley, they tell us that rice has been here for around 3,500 years, no? But it was actually introduced from the outside.
Yet we have over 200 different words for rice across Philippine languages. No? Palay when it's still in the field, bigas when it's milled, kanin when it's cooked, and bahaw when it's left over.
Kaning lamig, So, tutong yung crispy na sunog na part sa ilalim
Yes.
ng kaldero
Oo.
pag nagsasaing.
Ako ayoko nung totoo.
Kasi iba trip na trip yan eh. Ako din.
Oh, na-enjoy ko yung
Hindi ko
tutong.
na-gusto.
Sabi nila wag daw kakainin yung tutong kasi magiging bobo ka. Baka... Pero na-enjoy ko yung tutong, ha?
Grabe naman magiging bobo ka.
Legit.
Alam mo yun, di ba? Di ba sa paella, yung sokrat, yung tutong, yung actually tutong yun eh, no? Or yung sa, I think, Persian, meron pang Persian na tutong na rice na talagang dish. No? Yeah, others like it, but you know, some of us don't. Case in point, no, kami ni Vec, hindi namin yung trip. But here's something wild, no? The average Filipino consumes about 120 kilograms of rice per year. 120 kilograms, lagpas 2 kaban ng bigas ang kayang kainin ng isang Pilipino. On average na.
Average siya,
Paano pa pag ako ikaw? Or paano pa kapag inaaraw-araw mo ang only rice sa mga inasal? Di ba? Pero yung average na yan, that's around 330 grams every single day. And we are literally one of the world's biggest rice consumers per capita. Pero I think in Southeast Asia, mas malaki ang consumption ng Myanmar sa atin at Vietnam ng rice. Yeah.
Okay sana, no? Kaso, unfortunately, karamihan sa ating mga bigas ay ini-import natin, no? Like, tons of it. In 2023, we were actually the world's number 1 rice importer at 3.8 million tons.
Wow. So, yung tanong, 20 pesos na ba ang kilo ng bigas sa Pilipinas?
The $1,000,000 question.
Wala eh.
Yeah.
I don't think so. So today
Yeah.
we're tracing how rice transformed from a prestige food that only elite could afford regularly to something so essential that a meal without rice feels incomplete. Parang violation ng karapatang pantao.
Yeah.
So we'll explore ancient terraces, colonial exploitation, wartime starvation, and modern controversies that all revolve around this grain.
Let's start with a reality check. In pre-colonial Philippines, rice was not the everyday food for most people. Actually, root crops talaga. Halimbawa, taro, yam, sagopam, these were the real staples. Rice is something special. It was what you served to honored guests, what you offered to spirits, what you ate during festivals. Regular folks might have rice mixed with root crops, but pure rice meals, luxury yan, no?
At yan nga, isa dun sa mga naging findings or mas lalong pinaigting ng ebidensya ng mga pag-aaral ni Dr. Stephen Acabado, isang archaeologist, yung mga nakita, yung mga nahukay na fossil ng taro. Dito sa Pacific, halimbawa sa Hawaii, yung taro or kalo dito, yun din ang staple ng native Hawaiians, pre-contact Hawaiians. And I think yun nga makita yung Austronesian connection, Pero yung earliest evidence ng presence ng rice, ng palay sa Pilipinas ay mula sa Andarayan site in Cagayan Valley, where archaeologists found pottery with charred rice husks dating to around 1575 to 1077 BCE. So, upland rice ito. And it was grown in hillside clearings using slash and burn techniques.
And men would poke holes in the ground with dibble sticks. Women would drop the seeds. No, very different from the flooded paddies that we normally imagine today.
Wet rice cultivation actually developed later pa eh. So ito yung nauna, yung binabanggit natin na proseso before. But maybe I think in the first millennium CE, Common Era, nagdevelop itong wet rice cultivation. Here, farmers would transplant seedlings from seed beds into marshy fields. But water control was basic. Fields could flood or dry out unpredictably.
The game changer actually was the Carabao. Yung kalabaw, yung paggamit ng beast of burden, kumbaga. Na in-introduce around 300 BCE. So these water buffaloes became the tractors of ancient Philippines, so pulling wooden plows through muddy fields.
And by the time the Spanish arrived in 1521, the Philippines had thousands of traditional rice varieties. Masipag, the Farmer Scientist Network, estimates that there were over 4,000 district land races, each adapted to specific microclimates and local preferences.
Yes, so halimbawa sa Ifugao they had the tinawon. So mabango itong kanin na to at it only grows once a year. So it was quite special. The Kalinga had unoy variety, so red and white. So yung mga nakikita natin na red and white kapag nasa Baguio, kapag kumakain kayo sa mga eatery sa Baguio, kapareho nito And in Coastal Luzon, yung mga mapabango ding bigas like Dinorado and Sinandoming.
Galing, no? Kasi Dinorado, it's obviously Spanish na no? Kasi Dinorado parang golden yung ibig sabihin ng Dinorado. So, in a way, golden kasi masarap yung variety ng bigas na yun. But I think it connects also to the fact that rice isn't just food, no? At some point, it was currency. In pre-colonial barangays or bayans, people paid tribute to their datu in terms of kavans of rice, no, or sacks of rice siguro, or a portion of rice. A pig might cost a specific amount of rice. For example, Chinese traders who visited from the 10th century onwards would demand rice as provisions for their return voyages.
And labor required made it valuable. Laura Younker's research shows rice needed far more work than root crops, making it a prestige food. Only those with enough dependents or slaves could actually produce surplus.
Yes. Yan yung isa sa mga sinasabi nila na disadvantage ng Neolithic Revolution, di ba? Sobrang work-intensive ng pagsasaka ng agriculture. Sabi nila sa China daw, during, until around 18th century, an average farmer consumes and expends like 4,500 calories araw-araw. Di ba? Kasi nga,
Grabe.
very work-intensive siya. Tapos sa atin sa Pilipinas, rice was actually quite sacred, Ako nalala ko nung bata ako, yung tatay ko, galit na galit yun sa akin kapag nagtitira ako ng kanin. Yeah, kapag hindi ko inuubos, tapos yung kwento niya ay, kahit yung lolo ko na hindi ko naabutan, ganun, nagagalit to talaga kapag hindi inuubos yung kanin. Kasi parang magagalit yung mga espiritu, yung mga anito, kasi nag-aaksaya ka ng bigas, nagtatapon ka ng grasya, is what they say.
Nung bata rin ako, kaya rin ako, I think, developed an unhealthy habit eating. Kasi yung lola ko, ang sabi sa akin, kapag hindi mo kinain yung bigas na yan, bawat piraso ng kanin, umiiyak yan.
Oh my God!
Maririnig mo yan habang tulog ka. So I had dreams before of grains of rice crying. So I ate all of them. So more merciful. They're begging to be eaten.
Oh my God. Grabe, no?
Traumatic yung childhood nyo, no?
Traumatic.
Pero yun nga yung sacredness, 'di ba? Na ina-ascribe natin sa kanin or sa bigas. Nag-reflect din sa 'di ba? Dun sa indigenous spirituality. Tulad nung pinag-usapan natin a few episodes ago about the bulol, 'di ba? Which were actually made to guard rice granaries.
Yeah.
'Di ba? And then merong may mga harvest and planting rituals pa sa mga communities na 'to. So it could go on for days. And the idea was, you need to do this to please the ancestors, to honor their spirits and, gain their favor.
Kaya nga, nabanggit ko rin kanina na ideally we really treat every grain with respect, no? Also because we know that that's the source of our strength, that's the source of our energy, that's what keeps us alive, no? Yung bigas, it's central to our meals to the point na meron tayong ulam which I think yung ulam defies translation in
Yeah.
other languages kasi ang hirap niya. It's ang weird nga nung viand. I really hate the term viand, no?
Oo nga.
But kasi for us, ulam is something you eat with rice,
Uh-uh.
essentially.
Yeah.
Diba?
Yeah, yun yung in-explain ko eh. Like, the rice is the main thing.
Hindi
Yes.
siya
Hindi,
side
di ba? Hindi siya yung side kasi sa ibang cuisine side yun.
Oo. So yeah, so for many communities in the Philippines, rice is so sacred. Some of them even don't step on spilled rice kasi daw disrespect yon sa kaluluwa nung bigas.
When the Spanish established colonial rule in 1565, they found rice fields impressive but insufficient. Miguel de Luarca in 1582 and Antonio de Morga in 1609 described irrigated paddies in Luzon, but they immediately started extracting rice as tribute.
Yes. And the encomienda system commodified rice completely. So an adult in 1570s Pampanga, for example, might owe several kavans o kaban ng bigas annually dun sa encomendero. So yung isang kaban, ano yan, mga 50 kilos. So bata na yan. So, pero 50 kilograms of paddy rice. So yan yung naging standard unit nung colonial taxation or yung tributo.
At ang pinakamalaking rice producer at the time are the friar estates, no? The
Haciendas,
church. Dominican estates in Pangasinan and Tarlac operated huge rice operations with hundreds of tenant families. Farmers who once gave tribute to their datus now paid rent to the friars.
The Spanish did introduce improvements also. No, they promoted the plow more wildly, built some irrigation canals, brought in new world crops like corn and sweet potato that could supplement rice. But they also created problems.
Terrible problems. Halimbawa, 1584 famine in Pampanga caused mass deaths. Taggutom, ano. And late 1790s saw starvation in remote corners of Luzon and Samar. And then by 1870s, the Philippines had shifted from occasional self-sufficiency to being a chronic rice importer kasi nga yung mga bukirin, yung mga kalupaan ay ginagamit sa pagtatanim ng mga cash crops na ine-export. So yung
Yes.
mga dating pinagtataniman sana ng bigas o pangkain ng mga community, naging taniman halimbawa ng tabako or ng abaka or ng kape.
Kasi nga naman, kung bigas ang itatanim doon, hindi maibebenta outside. No? Benito Legarda documented that by the early 1870s, the colony was importing rice regularly from French Indochina and Burma just to feed Manila. Between 1876 and 1880, average yearly imports were around 60,000 tons.
Then came the Americans in 1898 with their scientific agriculture. They established the Bureau of Agriculture, set up experiment stations, even founded what became the UP Las Bañas in 1909. They introduced new varieties, promoted chemical fertilizers, and even sent agricultural instructors to villages.
Yes, meron pa sila yung mga rice demonstration, ano. They traveled to provinces with model threshing machines. Talagang, di ba, kung malala nyo yung tiki-tiki episode natin, di ba? Sila yung nag-introduce
Yes.
nito
Oo.
kumbaga, pag-thresh. At ang naging problema nga dyan ay yung pagtaas ng very, very incidences sa Pilipinas. So, I don't know. I just don't think you should act like you're experts in rice if, you don't even eat it.
Without the
Yeah,
local
no.
knowledge. Yeah.
Oo nga, no? Parang nagbida-bida sila na parang, we will do all the research, but in the process, they strip the rice of its nutritional content and value, introduce this nutrition issues. But not just that, no? Not just the scientific agriculture, but also the land policies introduced by the Americans created new problems, no? The Torrens title system enabled speculation and land grabbing. And by the 1930s, most of Central Luzon rice farmers were merely sharecroppers na lang, giving half their harvests to the landlords.
By 1919, there would be the rice crisis after World War I, and it saw prices spike and people protesting hunger. The government created the National Food Administration to buy foreign rice and sell at subsidized prices. Then in 1936, President Quezon established NARIC, or the National Rice and Corn Corporation, well, to stabilize prices.
Yeah, but none of this achieved self-sufficiency. And by 1940, production was around 4 million tons. Pero yung import, patuloy pa rin, hindi pa rin sapat. And average yield was around 1.2 metric tons per hectare.
And then, by 1941, of course, December, the Japanese will arrive, World War II will start in this side of the world, everything will collapse. The Japanese military confiscated rice for their troops. Kasi alam naman natin, ang mga Hapon din, mahalaga rin sa kanila ang kanin. In fact, ang term nila for rice and for meal is the same, no?
Anak ni Goku.
Anak ni Goku, si Gohan. The Japanese imposed quotas on every village. So the farmers had to hide their harvests or switch to root crops just to survive. So black markets also exploded. In Manila, by late 1944, people were dying of starvation daily.
Yun yung sinasabi nila, kasi maraming bahagi ng Pilipinas, actually, hindi naman sila naabot ng war violence per se.
Yeah.
Pero, naramdaman nila yung gera sa gutom.
Yes.
Diba? Dun sa scarcity ng resources. Bukod pa dyan, bukod pa sa bigas mismo, the Japanese occupiers also slaughtered about 70% of the Carabao population. So, either for meat, tulutuin nila, or to deny them dun sa mga guerrillas. And this actually crippled rice farming for years after the war. Kasi bago ka naman makapagpalaki ng kalabaw, So, estimates suggest that up to 1 million Filipino civilians died during the war, and many from famine rather than combat. So, madami yun. So, people ate rice bran na normally fed to animals. So, you can just imagine how, hindi lang nutritionally yung problema di ba? The psychological impact of eating rice bran na alam mong pinapakain.
Oo, pagkain ng baboy yun eh.
Tapos ito rin, ng mga panahon to, yung lugaw nila, like, ang daming tubig, di ba? Para lang ma-stretch.
And this crisis persisted even after the Second World War. Kasi rice production had fallen to 60% of pre-war levels. Irrigation was damaged, fields abandoned, no animals, no seeds.
The Hukbalahap Rebellion in Central Luzon was also partly about rice. Tenant farmers wanted land reform and better lives. So magsaysay, around this time, the president responded by passing the Agricultural Tenancy Act in 1954, tapos yung Land Reform Act in 1955. Pero alam naman natin na yung implementation nito ay mabagal, limited, at sinicircumvent ng mga landlords sa Kongreso.
Kasi ang mga elite they have ways to protect their interests, no? Mga salot talaga yung mga yan. By 1965, production had grown to about 4 million tons. So medyo maganda na, no? Yields crept up to 1.23 tons per hectare. But the Philippines still imported rice whenever harvests failed. The 1961 rice shortage actually helped defeat President Garcia in the election. Ang nanalo noon ay yung kanyang kalaban na si Macapagal, who campaigned based on this rice crisis.
Then in 1960, something revolutionary happened. The International Rice Research Institute opened in Los Baños, Laguna.
Yes, so in 1966, IRRI released IR8 or Miracle Rice. So ito daw ay semi-dwarf variety which could yield 4 to 5 times more than traditional varieties under the right conditions. So ito din ay hindi siya yung mabilis masira. It didn't fall over when heavily fertilized. Tas mabilis din siyang mag-mature. And they respond dramatically to inputs like fertilizers.
Yeah, so Filipino farmers in irrigated areas started adopting Miracle Rice immediately. The Marcos government later on also promoted Miracle Rice aggressively. Average yields surged from 1.3 tons per hectare in 1965 to 2.5 tons by the mid-1970s. Annual production doubled from 3.7 million to 7.7 million tons in just 2 decades. So maraming salamat, Marcos. Joke lang.
Pero yun nga, for the first time in the 20th century, the Philippines briefly became a rice exporter.
Kaya kapag sinasabi ng mga Marcos apologists na golden age, they probably refer to this 1
Yeah.
year
Mm.
ng increased rice
Na
productivity.
nag-e-export tayo. Yeah.
Yes. Kung ano man yung mga naging gains nitong mga panahon na to, early part ng martial law, ay mabilis din nabawi by 1980s.
Correct. Oo.
Yung 1 year na yun ay 1977 to 1978. Yun lang yung year na nag-export tayo to our neighbors.
And I won't be surprised kung yung kita dyan ay hindi ninakaw, no? Ng mga Marcos. No?
Sabi nung isa kong friend, and I agree, kapag yung meal ay walang kanin, merienda lang yun.
Tama.
'Di ba? Kahit na noodles or pasta, 'di ba?
Parang weird, no?
Minimerienda lang
parang,
natin.
Alam mo yun, parang hindi ka kumain. Kami nga, ako french fries inuulam ko sa kanin eh. Spaghetti inuulam ko sa
Oh
kanin.
my God.
Honestly.
Oh my
Diba? Milo inuulam ko sa kanin. I mean, kanin is life, yo.
Yes, dog.
Oh my God.
And even our language proves how central rice is, no? Nabanggit natin to kanina sa intro eh. English has just one word for it, rice. But Philippine languages,
Yeah.
there's a lot, no? Palay in the field, bigas when milled, kanin when cooked, bahaw when it's left over or malamig, tutong for the crispy bottom, sinangag when you fry it, kakanin kapag matamis. Ang dami.
Kapag sinasabi ko yan sa mga American friends ko, sabi na that can't be real.
Ganun talaga eh. Kasi ang daming preparations na pwede siyang paggamitan. No? So, bahagi siya ng ating buhay. So, kapag mas maraming pangalan over something, mas mahalaga, I think.
Idioms are revealing too, no? Isang kahig, isang tuka, or like one scratch, one peck means living hand to mouth. Literally scratching for each grain like chicken. Walang kanin doesn't mean no rice. It means walang pagkain, right? No food at all.
Yes, for other Filipinos, kapag walang bigas, it's like, yun yung talagang sobrang hirap na hirap sila.
Yes.
Kapag kumakain na sila, halimbawa ng plantains or kamote, or kahit mais, halimbawa, during rice shortage, it's terrible. Tapos kahit yung mga metaphor, or yung mga kasabihan, di ba? Na, I think dahil na rin palayos everywhere, di ba? If you're outside of Metro Manila, malamang may malapit na bukid sa inyo, na palayan sa inyo. So halimbawa, yung sinasabi na maging parang palay ka ng kapag mas mabigat kasi mas hinog na or mas may laman na ay yumuyo ko. So maging mapagkumbaba, kumbaga. Taray.
Diba?
Lalim Lalim yun
Sinabi raw yan ni Manuel Quezon. Sinabi raw yan ng tatay ni Quezon sa kanya. No? Na the wiser you become, like the palay, the more humble you should be. Diba?
Nasa pelikula
Or
ba?
pwedeng inventor lang din ni Quezon yan. I won't be surprised, no? But yeah, rice structures our entire meal concept, no? Sabi nga natin kanina, the word ulam literally means anything you eat with rice, no? Pwede nang ulamin yan, di ba? Yung idea lang na inuulam ang isang bagay means you eat it with rice. Meat and vegetables, secondary yan. Rice is the foundation.
Saka, every life milestone involves rice. Like, a baby's first solid food is lugaw, soft rice, porridge. Newlyweds get showered with rice grains for prosperity. Even at funerals, families bring rice dishes to cemetery as offerings to the dead.
Yeah.
Saka kapag interesting to and I don't know kung sa inyo din, pero sa amin kapag undas, nagagawa yung mga tao ng suman.
Yeah, oo, suman. True,
Ng
true.
kakanin, ng mga kakanin,
Kakanin,
di ba?
yeah.
Tapos ako nun, tatanungin ko yung nanay ko, bakit uso yung suman kapag undas? Tapos sabi niya, kasi yun yung madaling dalhin sa sementeryo.
True.
Mas madaling baunin. So, interesting.
Sa amin naman kapag Holy Week, lagi kami nagbibiko pag Holy Week. Hindi ko rin alam kung for some reason kung bakit. But perhaps this connects to something older. Tas we just forgot why we do it. No?
Yeah. We just do it.
We
because,
just do
it's
it.
Pico.
Yeah. Oo. And which goes out to show how even Catholic traditions perhaps absorb this rice symbolism. No? Halimbawa na lang yung mga piyesta like San Isidro Labrador, the patron saint of farmers. Carabaos are made to parade through towns and rice stalks get blessed in churches. And
Interesting.
people offer suman or sticky rice cakes at altars.
Regional preferences reveal identity as well. Ilocanos prize their fragrant dinurado. Visayans mix corn grits with rice because of scarcity. Well, even today, some prefer that texture. In Mindanao, they have these special varieties making puso, that diamond-shaped hanging rice.
Sarap nun.
Correct.
Puso.
So, yung colonial period, we can say that it created lasting associations. Halimbawa, yung brown rice, pang mahirap daw yun. Kasi hindi siya yung super refined di ba? As opposed to the white polished rice na para sa mga mayayaman. Kahit ngayon, di ba? Yung mga lolo't lola natin, ina-identify nila yung brown rice sa gera, sa wartime. Ayaw nila kainin kasi it
Oo.
reminds them of hard times.
Ako yung lola ko talaga, very specific yung luto niya ng kanin. Ayaw niya ng sobrang lambot or yung moshi kasi daw it reminds her of the low quality rice na
Lata.
available lang dati. So napalo pa ako ng dati kasi nagmagaling ako magluto ng kanin tapos
Nagsayang.
nalata. Nalata. So,
Lumata.
galit na galit yung lola ko.
Ilalagay mo ng asin sa
Asin.
ibabaw ng
Yeah, which is I don't know how that I don't know paano yun naluluto yung bigas from the outside, but I don't know. I don't
heat
want
daw yan, yung init ng I don't know. I just do it.
Naalala ko lang yung asing ginagamit sa ice cream. Anyways.
Di ba? O ngayon, yun nga rin bro, di ba? Yung asin ginagamit sa ice cream, tapos ginagamit din siya sa bigas. So parang both cold and hot pala. Dapat pala may asin episode din tayo no? Anyway. Ironically though, itong brown rice ngayon is a health food na, no? And it's become like a symbol of the middle class, the health conscious na kasi yung white rice is essentially parang sugar na yan diretso sa
Mas
bloodstream.
mataas yung glycemic index.
Oo.
Rice farming shaped community values as well, no? Well, we're known for bayanihan, and this tradition of neighbors helping each other will also be applied to rice cultivation. Parang similar sa Japan, no? Yung practice nilang kapag nagtatanim. Everyone would help transplant one family's field, then move to the next. And then the host would cook a huge pot of rice to feed the volunteers.
Yes, at yung farming calendar, yung schedule, it really structured Filipino social life, 'di ba? So, halimbawa sa Ifugao, they have specific months named for each cultivation stage. Tapos yung ibang mga community events, like halimbawa kasal, wedding, in-schedule nila yan dun sa mga buwan between planting and harvest kasi hindi busy yung mga tao masyado.
And gender roles were complementary, but distinct. Men plowed and repaired dikes. Women had the skilled job of transplanting seedlings in perfect rows. During harvest, women carefully cut each stalk while men bundled and carried. Just reminds me of Fernando Amorsolo paintings, no, depicting the Filipina maiden with the grains of with the stalks of rice and all, or mga harvest time. We really see the women here. And women controlled household rice storage and rationing. Work songs actually made labor bearable, no? May isang kanta na I think rooted in this tradition ng pagkanta habang nag-aani ng palay or nagtatanim ng palay, 'di ba? Yung magtanim ay di biro, lahat tayo kinantayan nung elementary siguro. Which means planting rice is never fun. Na hindi ko gustong translation kasi I think magtanim ay di biro is like
It's no joke.
planting rice is not a joke.
Yeah.
It's not fun. Of course it can be fun, yeah. But I think it captures the hardship, no, and also the pride. Na what we do is not a joke.
Yeah.
It's something serious. It's hard,
honorable.
but it's important. No, it's honorable. Yeah, and I think the lyrics describe the farmers bent back under the burning sun, and the fact that every Filipino child sings this at some point in their lives is in a way honoring that tradition. No, how dependent we are from farmers in Vietnam. Yeah, where we get our rice, no? Essentially. But yeah.
Isa sa mga object ng homesickness, lalo ng mga OFW, ay yung bigas, no? Ngayon may Costco na, so okay na. Pero before, pupunta ka sa supermarket, ang mabibili mong bigas, yung mga naka-box, na parang cornstarch, yung pa isa-isang kilo, di ba? Wala kang mabibili ng mga 50 kilos na binibili natin lagi. So, ngayon, yung mga Asian grocery stores, nag-stock na sila ng mga ganyan. Ang bumibili niyan, syempre, mga Pilipino, mga Korean. So yeah,
Oo.
talagang non-negotiable yan eh, di ba? Kahit nasan ka sa mundo.
Ako nga alam, may kakilala ko na talagang nung nag-aral siya sa Latin America for his, I think, master's or PhD. Nagdala siya ng rice cooker. Kasi alam niya na mahirap magluto ng bigas.
Oo.
Pero hindi rin siya, may bigas doon sa Mexico, I think. Pero kasi mas tortilla yung kinakain nila. Yung mga flour patties. So,
Corn flour.
wala masyadong bigas daw silang kinakain. So, medyo na-miss talaga niya.
Today, the Philippines produces about 20 million metric tons of palay annually, making us the world's 8th largest producer. And we have 2.4 million rice farmers working at an average of just 1 hectare each.
Yeah, the average farmer is 56 years old with an annual household income of around 100,000 pesos or 8,000 pesos monthly. So this is just barely above poverty level. Yung mga kabataan, younger people, were turning away from farming. Kasi mahirap siya, tapos yun nga, malit ang kitaan di ba? Puro influencers na sila ngayon. Charot.
Well, yeah. Mas madali kasi yan. No? But I think importanteng mabanggit natin na nagbago rin ang lahat recently, particularly noong 2019 when the rice tariffication law changed everything. I think at some point, our shortage of rice just became so chronic that the government saw it as a stopgap measure to remove import restrictions altogether, no? Which ang intent talaga nung import restriction is to protect the farmers,
Dapat,
diba?
diba?
From cheap rice flooding the market.
Yes.
Pero ang nangyari sa rice tariffication law, yung protection na ito ay naging tariff na lang. So anyone can now import rice by paying 35% tariff from ASEAN countries.
So rice imports surge. Consumer prices drop from like 45 to 50 pesos per kilo to 35 to 40 pesos. Well, it's great for consumers, but of course, dapat isipin din natin yung nasa kabilang nasa other side Kasi farmers lost about 12,000 pesos per hectare per season.
Talagang hindi na natuto yung Philippine government sa mga ganitong klaseng economic management. Kasi halimbawa, during the 90s, yung mga tariff natin on food items like mga prutas o mga gulay, mababa siya compared sa mga neighbors natin sa Southeast Asia like Thailand. So, hindi na protektahan yung local agriculture natin. So, mahal ang pagkain dito kumpara sa Thailand ngayon, di ba? Like,
Yeah.
tas itong ginagawa natin ngayon, hindi naman natin pinoprotektahan yung mga magkasaka natin. I mean, tulad ng sinabi nila, this is just a stopgap measure. In response to this, yung government, they created a 10 billion peso annual fund from tariff revenues. Sabi naman nila, tutulungan yung mga magsasaka para makapag-modernize, mag-provide ng mga bagong machinery, ng punla, at training, di ba? Pero ang sabi ng karamihan ay konti lang yung naaabot nitong mga bagong subsidy na ito at mabagal ang pag-distribute.
Kasi nga naman di ba, yung tariffs na ito is another source of fund for the government. At itong service na ibibigay nga daw na tulong sa mga farmers ay dadaan na naman sa mga contractors. So meron na namang equation dito ng corruption, may makikinabang na naman and all.
Yes,
Imbes na palakihin na lang yung kita sana ng mga magsasaka. Ewan ko, dito sa Japan, sobrang mahal ng bigas ngayon. Like tipong
Nagmahal.
sobrang nagmahal. As in double the price. I think 10,000 yen ang 5 kilos ng bigas.
Oh, wow.
Which is around like 5,000 pesos kung di ako nagkakamali.
Ba't ang mahal?
Sobrang mahal. Kasi nga, nag-fail yung isang harvest season, isang cycle.
Dang.
At dahil hindi sila papayag na pumasok ang rice from the outside here. Pero yung mga Hapon kasi may sense of pride din sila with their rice Not that they will use rice from other countries because of this problem, no? They will still not kasi they don't like it.
Tiis muna.
Para sa kanila kasi mahalaga yung lasa nung bigas. So for them, magtitiis na lang, mahal, sige, okay lang. Parang panandalian lang naman yan. Pero ganun ka-protektado yung mga farmers.
Yeah, exactly.
But we see this example of, for example, of harvests failing or a planting season failing because also of climate change. It really threatens everything. The Philippines in particular, we are at the brunt of the threats of climate change. We face rising temperatures, erratic rainfall, stronger typhoons, sea level rising, affecting coastal rice lands. Isang super typhoon na ang kailangan, no? At masisira lahat yung hundreds of thousands of tons of harvest. So imagine kung gaano kalaking
Yes.
impact meron yan.
Bukod pa dyan, no, we're losing agricultural land din. So about 100,000 hectares of farmland disappearing every decades to subdivisions and malls. Well, prime water, ay joke lang. Prime rice lands in Central Luzon and Calabarzon keep shrinking.
Calabarzon at Las Piñas.
Ay, eh.
So, ang isa sa mga ginagawang remedyo, at tingin ko, ako, wala akong problema dito. Basta wag lang maging Monsanto. Yung mga GMO, di ba? Halimbawa yung golden rice, genetically modified. So, nutritionally, mas okay siya. Tapos, ito din yung first approved GMO rice for commercial planting. Tapos, they're also developing drought-tolerant and flood-resistant varieties.
Yeah, just may mga technologies na rin, no? In practice now, like drones for spraying, apps for farming advice, kumbaga, ino-automate na yung planting, no? But technology can't really solve everything, you know? Kasi ultimately, yung problema, hindi naman kakulangan ng teknolohiya, kung hindi kakulangan ng mismong input. Many farmers can't afford
Yeah.
inputs. Rural credit remains predatory. Informal lenders charge 3 to 5% monthly interest. Grabe, sobrang usurious nung loan practices, no? At ang talagang kawawa dito ay yung mga magsasaka. The Masagana 99 legacy of massive defaults actually made banks reluctant to lend to farmers. So kawawa yung mga farmers.
A good example would be the Cordillera terraces, symbolizing how these challenges appear, no? Like up to 30% of Banawi's terraces are abandoned or lie abandoned because of Ifugaos migrating to cities for easier work. And ano din, influence ng modernization. When terraces aren't maintained, walls crumble and centuries of engineering erodes away.
Yes, so yung innovation na ginagawa ngayon ay yun nga towards the heirloom varieties like Ifugao's Tinawon na ibinibenta nila ng mas mahal. Yun nga at ang consumer niyan yung mga health
Yeah.
buff urban foodies,
Yes.
'di ba? Or ini-export, 'di ba? So itong mga organic and specialty rice varieties na to, they fetch double or triple regular prices. So nakakatulong sa mga magsasaka.
But the fundamental question remains, should the Philippines pursue rife self-sufficiency at all costs? Or do we just accept na sobrang laki hindi natin kaya, importer na lang tayo para sure at least natin na mura lang yung presyo ng bigas natin? I think every administration promises affordable rice, no, and support for farmers. Pero kasi usually may conflict sa goals na yan, no? Kasi for you to support farmers means na hindi ka pwede basta-basta magpasok ng napakalaking bigas from outside, no? Kasi you want to support the farmers, you want the prices to be advantageous to them. Pero when you flood them with imported rice, like during the time of Duterte, nung rice tarification law, Duterte can proudly say, hey, bumaba ang presyo ng bigas nung panahon ko. But ultimately, that's a soundbite for him to claim na meron siyang legacy. Pero sinong nag-suffer? Yung mga Pilipino. So, may conflict sa goals.
Pero looking ahead din, rice will probably remain central to Filipino identity, well, even as consumption slowly decreases. For example, per capita consumption, it dropped from 128 kilos in 2008 to about 110 kilos now. Younger urbanites eat more bread and pasta. Some even follow low-carb diets.
Keto.
Mga keto, oo.
Yes, but still, cultural inertia is actually really strong. I mean, ilang centuries na nating staple ang kanin, ang bigas. So unless climate change really, forces us to adopt drastic changes, rice will continue binding Filipino communities. So mag-evolve yan, but I think it will, it's here to stay.
So, rice in the Philippines is indeed a story of transformation, no? From prehistoric introduction to prestige food to colonial commodity to a modern political flashpoint. And I think it's great that we ended our current season with rice. Although as we mentioned earlier, magbabalik tayo next year para ipagpatuloy itong bagay-bagay. Kasi we realize there's just a lot of objects we can still talk about and we barely scratch the surface. When we talk about the Filipino life, the Filipino identity, ang daming pwedeng nating banggitin at pag-usapan. So next year, magbabalik tayo for perhaps another set of objects of Philippine life. So abangan nyo yan.
Until then, check out our website, podcast.org, and our social media pages. Revisit our older seasons and episodes.
So maraming salamat sa pagsubaybay sa season na Bagay-Bagay, Objects of Philippine Life. I am Vecal Porha.
I am Lee Candelaria.
And I'm Joselito Ebro.
And as always, have a good day.